Alright, we are almost home. Brazelton, Georgia. We went up to Chris Moore Mafia fame, have him flash Jonathan's exhaust. And I put a Leo Vinci D-Cat on this, which didn't make it that much louder, but whatever. I can change the muffler later. But it's not bad. It's a little louder. Jonathan's is fucking crazy, obnoxiously loud. He thought he was getting an M4, and I was installing it, and I'm like, it's not fitting right. The paint's peeling off. I'm like, since when did M4 start welding in the DB killers, which stifle performance as well, instead of using snap rings? And I'm like, dude, where'd you get this? He's like, oh, I got it on eBay. I'm like, this isn't an M4. Yeah, it is. I'm like, how much did you pay? Like, $100. I'm like, yeah, this is a $450 muffler. When you buy a $450 muffler off of eBay, brand new, for $100, it's Chinese. And that one in particular is shit. Trying to get the baffle out of it, it was freaking making the thing fall apart. And then a big piece of paint about that fucking big went whoop and just came off while he was riding it. Crazy. He likes the sound. I think it's too loud. It's not a bad tone. It's just obnoxiously loud going down the road. So anyway, that's what we did today. Surprisingly, did not get rained on. So I had Kaler made flash the ECU to unlock this thing, and they did some other tweaks, but it wasn't a tune. This one's now got an actual tune that Chris developed for this setup for the stock bike with the D-cap, the cat eliminator, link pipe, and all that shit. And I noticed when I got the other pipe, on every other bike you want to get rid of the fuel cut. Want to eliminate that so that your on-off throttle transition and stuff is a little smoother. The problem is on this bike, the quick shifter and the auto blip, when the switch is activated, it cuts spark, not spark, and fuel. So it loads fuel into the cylinder and then it comes back on and does its auto blip thing. And it blips a certain amount based on your revs and stuff. Now, when you're using the auto blipper with the throttle closed, the fuel cut is there, so there's no fuel. So when it blips it, it only gives it the right amount. When you do the fuel cut eliminator, it's dumping raw fuel into the cylinders while it cuts the spark, and then when it auto blips, you've got more fuel than you need, and it was causing it to be herky and jerky. You downshift and it would go brrr, and it would like lunge forward and then back. It was not smooth at all. And I was trying to ride around it by only using it at higher revs and stuff, but now it is much better. It just drops without auto blipping up the revs really high. It does exactly what it's supposed to now. So it's pulling smooth, clean, feels great. And then, anyway. So we're going to do a really short vlog because I'll be home in 15 minutes. And this is around new riders. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to call her names, although I'd like to. I don't even want to give her any traffic on her channel. She's only got 200 subscribers anyway. No one's watching it. But I saw, things scroll by, and I work in front of a computer all day, so I'm constantly seeing shit scroll by. And it was like, new rider on a Gixxer 600, new bike, and the conversation at some point, me or somebody else, both, said something about, well, why not get like a ZX cigar, something with ABS and some traction control, because she's a new rider in Florida. And then she starts like getting an attitude about, well, nobody needs ABS, it's stupid, and you got to have proper technique, and I'd rather rely on my skills. And I'm like, sweetheart, you don't have any skills. You just started riding like last Thursday. Like, what are you talking about? And it's always this way with the Gixxer crowd. And I don't know if it's because people that are idiots buy them, or because they bought a GSXR, and if it's a 600 or 750, even in 2025, it's not an option to have ABS, rider modes, traction, any of that stuff, quick shifter. So they have to justify why. Well, everybody else gets those, but I don't really need it. I want the control. And it's like, you don't have control. You're a new rider. I'm watching your video. You almost dropped your bike 3 times before the end of the driveway. Just stop. You're not fast. You're not leaning your bike. You've never done a track day. And by her own words, she's brand new. But this is by no means limited to this dum-dum. And I'm like, look, ABS is really good. The systems today are excellent. They can, will, and have saved a lot of people's bacon. And starts going down the path of, well, you know, I just use proper technique. And it's like, you just started riding. You don't even know what proper technique is. You're probably using your rear brake. like you don't have the experience. We're all there. We all started riding. I think the difference is certain people just ride with their goddamn ego because they don't want to be told. And here's the thing. I've been riding now for 30 years. 30. If I don't include dirt bikes. If I include dirt bikes, oh god, that thing's obnoxious. Then 40 years. And I've been riding for a long time. And I've had lots of bikes, including Ducatis and leader bikes, CBR 1000s. Plenty of fast bikes that didn't have any electronics. And I did fine. I learned to ride. I did track days. Spent a lot of time in the mountains. I talked to people that were better than me, and I listened to them. And I'm a good rider. I'm never going to be a pro, but I'm what most people would consider like a qualified, somewhat skilled rider. Got about 400,000 miles under my belt on dozens of bikes, straight and track days, about 20 track days mixed in. And I also know a lot about technology and about the bikes and setup and stuff like that, because again, I've spent a lot of time and money and effort on these things with people who are professionals and racers and AMA mechanics and stuff like that, like Huey and Chris Opie, former AMA pro racer. And I take notes, I listen, I pay attention. And she gets this stupid patronizing, like, well, maybe if you feel, you're such a great experienced rider, yeah, that's, you're using ABS, so you probably don't, know as much. It's like, oh my God. These systems are proven. These systems work. People have been using them for years. They've been on cars for decades. Not been on bikes for over a decade. It's like, ego gets you hurt. Ego puts you on the ground. This is it's not a binary argument of you either have proper skills or you just totally rely on electronics and ride like a muppet and assume that the electronics are going to save you, because they're not. If you're an unskilled idiot, the electronics will help a bit, but ultimately, it's not going to stop you from driving right into someone at 80 miles an hour. And it doesn't matter how skilled you are, even if you have really good skills. The street will throw things at you. People will cut you off. A car all of a sudden dumped transmission fluid. There might be leaves, wet grass, clip-ins, people pulling out right friggin' in front of you. A goddamn deer coming out of nowhere. You see a flash of brown and boom, it's there in front of you. And you're going 50 miles an hour. And no matter how good you think you are, the electronics are always better. The only exception is in a race environment at a race pace, not for safety, has nothing to do with safety. Oh, you don't want to use ABS on a racetrack. No, you can. But if you're really, really good, you might want to brake really hard and late. And if that ABS did kick in, it might drive you 10 feet deeper into the turn. Not enough to run off track, but you missed the apex and you lost that inside line. And now the other guy takes that inside line and passes you, and you just lost a spot. So for that reason, the pros don't want ABS on track. But on the street, you absolutely 100% do. And if you don't, it's because you're you're arrogant and you think, oh, I know everything there is to know and my skill will save me. It will, right up until it doesn't. This is not a binary argument. It's not you either have proper good technique or you have electronics. The electronics are there to augment and add to your proper technique. Because proper technique, even if perfectly done, there will be situations on the road that technique are not enough. It's something beyond your control. You were going too fast, something jumped out in front of you, and you did not have the time. You know, I liken it to, I'm a really good shot with a pistol. I can draw really quick from concealment, engage multiple targets. I can do all that stuff, and I practiced it for years, and I actually did like IDPA competition for a while, and I was good at it. I was shooting as well or better than a lot of the guys that have been there for, you know, a decade. Just, I've got good hand-eye coordination and timing and stuff. But that's different when you're in a controlled environment and the stakes are low, right? You can know all the right techniques. Have I ever had to do it when my life was actually on the line and the fear of death is in front of you and that person is drawing on you and they've already got the head start? No, of course not. Most people haven't. And I don't want to be in that position. I carry a gun, but it's not like I want to use it. I hope to avoid that. But there are certain things you cannot really train for unless you're in that situation. And I look at the gun situation kind of like these other systems. You can be a really good rider. You can be very experienced and all that. But when you're in the turn and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, there's diesel. There's a dead animal. There's something that you couldn't see. And by the time you came around the corner, there it is. Or an animal that wasn't there runs out across the road. Shit happens. And no matter how skilled you are, there are situations that may and eventually will come up if you ride long enough that will be beyond your skill. Whether you're a new rider or you're a 50-year veteran rider, whether you're an amateur racer that also rides on the street, it doesn't matter. At some point, the law of averages says that shit's just going to happen. And as much as you think you're prepared for it, you don't know. And so having that extra space, having that extra safety net is a good thing. Build your skills. Become a competent rider. Ride as if those systems aren't there, but leave them on. Because the day may very well come. At some point, it probably will. If you ride enough years, you're going to hit the ground. It's not a matter of if you crash, it's a matter of when. And crashes a lot of times are avoidable. And even the people that have been riding for 13 years and... Yeah, well, when the deer jumped in front of you and you just said, oh, fuck, you didn't think, okay, well, first let me partially load the brakes, let me load the front suspension to push the tire into the ground to increase my traction, then get progressively harder on the brakes, and then add some... When a deer jumps out from here, think about where that truck is. Now, you're on that deer in a second. And maybe you can avoid it. Or maybe you can keep the tire from locking up and tucking and putting you on the ground. That ABS will make all the difference. It's for those situations you can't predict. It's for the times where your skill's not enough. And here's the thing for this girl and all of her simp supporters who also can't ride for shit. When you're a new rider, that's even more important. It's good to have those things. I tell people when you're a new rider and you get if you get a new bike, hey, you should get a used bike because you're going to drop it. Might as well drop a bike that's already dropped in value and take a new bike and cut the value in half. But whatever, if you get a bike that's modern enough that's got electronics, leave them on. In fact, turn them all the way up. When you're a brand new rider and you're learning how to ride on the street, put it in goddamn rain mode. Soften the power delivery. Turn the ABS and traction control up all the way. You don't have the reaction time. You don't have the skill set. You don't have the experience to recognize, is that wet? Is that not? Is it just discolor pavement? Is it diesel spill? You don't have that. You don't have that foundation. Let the electronics help you. And as your skill and comfort level increases, turn them down a little bit. Give yourself a little more power. Give yourself a little less of a crutch. But even when you get to a point where you're like, okay, you know what, I've done a couple track days, I've been riding for 2 years, I'm a fairly competent rider now. You're still a newish rider. And even if you've been riding for 10 years, leave the stuff on. It's all ego. People, I don't need that. You think you don't. It's like a seatbelt. You could go 30 years of driving and never be in a car accident. You could be a meticulous, amazing driver. At some point, you're going to hit something, or someone's going to hit you, and you're going to be like, well, goddamn, I'm really glad I had that fucking seatbelt on so I didn't put my head through the windshield and mess up my face and have to get cosmetic surgery, reconstructive surgery for next year, and still look like a jack-o'-lantern. You know, it's one thing to argue about things, but it's like, have people just give me attitude and give other people that are experienced going like, dude, he's right. I mean, because it just drives around on the roads, on straight roads in Florida. Rains a lot. There's sand in the roads. ABS is a good thing. She's never gone around a racetrack at 170 plus. She doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. But when people that do know what they're talking about, because they learn the lesson, sometimes the hard ways, they have decades of experience. They had to learn on analog bikes and made the transition to digital, and it made better. That's the thing. Electronics don't hold you back. Today's bikes are faster than ever before, but they're also safer. And the reason for that is electronics. The reason you can push the bike faster, the reason you can push the bike harder, is because there are electronics to monitor things. I don't care how fucking good you think you are. The electronics are better. Always. They just are. And for you to think that at 3 months of riding that somehow you're way more skilled and advanced than all the engineers and test riders and race teams and all the telemetry data and the millions of dollars invested in these things, you think you're better than that? You're not. It's a good way to get yourself hurt or worse. And people make it sound like, oh, you just got a big ego. You're trying to talk like you're looking at it wrong. Yeah, I have a lot of experience. And here I am telling you, I don't know everything. I know I have limits to my skill. But no matter how good I get, I will never be better than the electronics. That's not me being conceited or trying to flex. But that's me actually saying, no matter how good I think I am, there will be a time when you could use a little help. And for people to argue about that stuff, and it's like, dude, so it's almost like you have a kid who's just determined to touch that hot stove, and you're like, dude, look at my scars. Like, I'm telling you, this is a bad idea. No, you don't know what you're talking about. At some point, you're just like, all right, well, fucking touch the stove. I'll go get the Bactine ready and the whatchamacallit, Band-Aids, and hopefully you don't fuck yourself up too bad. But it's like, man, ego gets you hurt is the point here. Look at that thing. Sexy beast. Anyway, for the new riders out there, don't be afraid of electronics. They're your friend. They're not a substitute for skill. They're an addition to your skill. That's a very specific thing you need to wrap your mind around. The engineers and the people that built this bike and designed those systems, the pro racers and the MotoGP test riders and all that shit, they know better than you. They know better than me. Difference is I can admit it. Later.